The way the financial system used to work and the dollar system was designed is when you're the world reserve currency, you operate in something that's called the Triffin's dilemma. Okay, you can print the currency that everyone else has to use to store value, to settle trade, to price goods and services. But the problem is that you as a nation state have to run in what's called a deficit. And the US has ran what's called twin deficits. It means our greatest export is the currency itself. Okay, so we end up net exporting the currency on an annual basis. And what that leaves us is with a deficit. What that does to us is we accrue lots and lots of debt. The size of our middle class is shrinking. The wealth gap has never been larger. We are a country in decline. We have to change. We have to not be the world reserve currency. Prosperity lives in a Bitcoin future.
The age of paper promises is over, and the age of incorruptible money has begun. Prosperity now lives in a Bitcoin future. That's the latest message from Strike CEO, Jack Mallers. In a Fox News interview, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent admitted that US allies such as Japan, Korea, and Europe would be required to push their trade surpluses, meaning the extra dollars they earn by selling more goods to America than they import, back into US industries. This was presented as normal policy, but in reality, it functions like forced tribute, an updated form of economic plunder happening in full view. The dollar's weakness has rarely been this exposed, and that fragility is pushing the world toward a totally different monetary order. Mallers explains that the world is experiencing the Triffin dilemma, the contradiction that comes when a national currency is forced to act as global money. To supply the world with dollars, the US runs huge deficits, but those deficits eventually break confidence in the system. That cycle has reached its end. With each admission of failure, capital shifts toward the only form of money that cannot be manipulated or inflated away: Bitcoin. It has become the ultimate escape valve as the old financial system decays. Mallers believes this will trigger the next explosive bull market. And to him, this rally is already forming, already alive, and ready to disrupt everything the dollar once controlled. Make sure to stick around until the end of the video as Jack Mallers explains why the cracks in the dollar system are setting off what could be Bitcoin's most powerful bull market yet.
So, I wanted to pull up this tweet. This is probably the craziest self-admission from the Treasury Secretary in the history of the United States government by far, and the admission is really this idea that the post-1971 dollar is dead. This fiat currency era is over. We are moving back towards a world reserve currency land, and you hear it from the man himself, the de facto CFO of the United States. What he said, in recap, is that the US allies, primarily Japan, Korea, and Europe, he's saying are going to be forced to recycle their trade surplus into US investments, primarily subsidizing and financing our factories and our ability to produce things. Why is this such a big admission? Why does this fly in the face of the system that was? And I say was in past tense because a lot of this episode is I fundamentally believe we are in a new monetary system. Now, change takes time, but it's over. And we are hearing self-admission from the US government and from the Federal Reserve. Guys, the way the financial system used to work and the dollar system was designed is when you're the world reserve currency, you operate in something that's called the Triffin's dilemma. Okay, you can print the currency that everyone else has to use to store value, to settle trade, to price goods and services. But the problem is that you as a nation state have to run in what's called a deficit. And the US has ran what's called twin deficits. It means our greatest export is the currency itself. Okay, so we end up net exporting the currency on an annual basis. And what that leaves us is with a deficit. What that does to us is we accrue lots and lots of debt. And so if you're the world reserve currency issuer, you actually over time struggle to produce things locally in your country. Your currency is artificially strong. Because it's the world reserve currency, it's stronger than other currencies, which means labor locally is more expensive, which means production locally is more expensive. So this is known monetary theory. If you are the world reserve currency for a sustained period of time, other parts of the world, your global trading partners, will actually have a better market for labor, a better market for production of goods and services. And you, as the world reserve currency issuer, your main job is to strictly export the currency itself. So we're constantly providing the world with dollar liquidity. We're piling on debt, because we print. And all of the things that we consume in our lives as Americans are actually produced and created outside of the country. Now, what Scott Bessent, Donald Trump, pretty much everyone, this is a bipartisan thing, is that they're talking about bringing production back to America. We need to start making our own stuff. And the greatest example is in the Department of Defense, is that the US cannot go on any long sustained war with a near peer or a peer like China without the support of China, because we rely on their rare earth minerals to actually go to war and build weapons. And so it is now a national security threat that we have allowed this Triffin's dilemma to eat out the culture, the middle class, and the inner heart of the United States. The benefits of this system are now not outweighing the cons. The benefits have ran its course, and it's drastically harming the United States of America. So when you hear that Trump wants factories, that's not a Republican thing. That's not a red thing. That's not a right thing. That's a America needs to get back to producing its own stuff that it consumes. It is solely reliant on all of its trading partners to sustain a lifestyle and protect itself as a country. The size of our middle class is shrinking. The wealth gap has never been larger. We are a country in decline. We have to change. We have to not be the world reserve currency. Prosperity lives in a Bitcoin future. That is unequivocally true, and we are starting to see that I'm not a crazy person. All of you guys that have been listening to the show, we're not crazy. Staying humble and stacking sats is the move towards prosperity. Next, the US will get a 15% cut of NVIDIA and AMD chip sales to China under a new unusual agreement. Guys, this is the new order. It has already been decided. The United States is going to force their allies to take their trade surplus and fund local production. Take the most successful businesses in this country and force them to fund local production. We are going to strategically weaken the dollar. If you think the dollar is weak now, wait 12 more months. The dollar is going lower significantly. It is the only way out, is the only way forward. Here is more proof that the US will go to extreme levels to finance the future that they have to have. When push comes to shove, the central banks, the money printers align with the government. The government is not going to give a crap about anyone's inflation targets. They will print the money. I promise you that. They already have. This from CNN. The White House is reportedly discussing taking a stake, yes, like an equity stake, like an ownership stake in Intel, sending its shares climbing. You heard that correct. The United States of America is planning on taking an ownership stake in a private business. Guys, this is new monetary order. This is never before seen shit happening. The United States is going to do everything they can as quickly as they can to get neutral reserve assets as the world's store of value, as the world's capital asset. The way we think about the dollar, the way we use the dollar will change in many ways quickly, in many ways slowly. But I assume why you listen to this show is to hear things like this. I cannot make it any more clear. This has been decided. This has changed. Past tense. It's over. You want to disagree with it? You don't like it? You want to stand against it? There's nothing I can do for you. You want a prosperous future? You want to protect your time and energy? You want to be able to support your family? You got to buy Bitcoin. You gotta buy Bitcoin, guys.
Jack Mallers pulled up what he calls the wildest admission ever from a U.S. Treasury Secretary. On Fox News, Scott Bessent flat out said that America's allies, Japan, Korea, and Europe will be told to use their extra profits from trade to build factories in the US. That means their money isn't theirs anymore because Washington gets to spend it. Even the host called it offshore appropriation, another word for theft. Mallers believes this proves the dollar system is finished. America can't print its way to prosperity forever. That future now belongs to one thing, and that's Bitcoin.
Now, based on everything I just said, in order to produce your own stuff, the currency itself has to get weaker. The United States has hyper-financialized, meaning what the US is predicated on is that the stock market does well and the companies grow margins and grow earnings and grow profits. And the best way for companies to do that is to build their company cheaply, right? And so, of course, if you're Apple, why would I have twice the expense to build the iPhone by building it in New York City when I can build it and subsidize it in China? So if the United States of America and the US government wants iPhones to be manufactured in America, wants NVIDIA chips to be built in America, wants the food, wants the technology, wants the hardware all to be able to be produced here in America, wants the rare earth minerals to be produced here in America, the currency has to weaken to be competitive in the export market. And this is a complete fundamental change in how monetary order across the global landscape works. Everything is changing. And guys, if global trade partners are not recycling their profits into dollar-denominated assets, into US debt, and instead they're being ordered by the United States to fund our factories and to fund basically a world where the US currency is weaker, everything changes. Everything changes. Now, I'll go to the next slide here, and this is such a massive admission from the Treasury Secretary, the CFO of the United States of America. This is in broad daylight, him saying the old system no longer suits this country. The new system, instead of Japan, instead of Korea, instead of the UK, instead of Germany, recycling trade profits and buying US debt, they're going to take their trade profits and they're going to finance the United States getting back on its feet. They're going to finance a new world where the dollar is significantly weaker. This is a huge deal. I continue to believe Bitcoin is going to severely outperform the stock market. We saw Trump with his executive order get Bitcoin and gold into the savings account, into the 401ks of the everyday American, because bonds and stocks, the 60-40 portfolio is dead. It's over. It's no longer performant. Yes, the stock market is performant in dollar terms, but so is my iPhone. So is coffee. So are these headphones. Everything around you is performant in dollar terms because it's a really fancy, complicated way of saying the dollar continues to go down no matter what, because we have to print it. What is performance in Bitcoin terms? Newsflash, almost nothing. Almost nothing. So Bitcoin is going to continue to murder, crucify, outperform the stock market. And what underpins a lot of my thesis? When people say, how do you know that? Is it just because Bitcoin scarcity? Yeah, you could leave it as simple as that. Is it just because Bitcoin's a globally accessible commodity and the US stock market closes and isn't available on weekends and isn't available to everyone in the world? Yeah, you can leave it as that. But you guys want a relevant, real-time approach to why I think the stock market is going to bleed over time against something like Bitcoin? Because the margins of these businesses are getting murdered. They're either going to have to pass these costs on to the consumer, so all of our iPhones are going to get more expensive, all of our cars are going to get more expensive, or they're going to continue to take the hit themselves. And that's going to get crushed on their earnings, on their balance sheet, on their profit margins. As I've said, guys, when the US hyper-financializes, it makes its living identity being the world reserve currency. That requires businesses to hyper-financialize themselves. That makes, you don't just produce things locally in America because you're a good American. Guess what that'll get you? Your stock shorted, you fired. That's what that'll get you. People in America want your stock to go up. People in America want cheap products. So you go build those products in China. And newsflash, everyone seems to care today. No one gave a shit where you made your products last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago. What they care about. It was cheap and your stock went up because your stock is in their 401k. That's all people cared about. And if you say otherwise, you're a liar. So now that we're imposing tariffs, the question is, who's paying? These businesses are paying. That means their stock is going to pay. If you think that businesses can take billions of dollars of hit on an annual basis and their stock isn't going to underperform, you're crazy. So this again is another reason that there's going to be a rotation out of stocks through this transition. There's going to be a rotation out of bonds through this transition. And capital will further find itself in the hardest thing you can own. Hard is in reference to how hard is it to produce more. Bitcoin is the hardest thing we all have access to. Not just everyone listening on this show, not just everyone in the country, not just everyone of America's allies. I mean everyone. I mean every single person with a pulse on this planet has access to Bitcoin, and it happens to be the hardest thing they can own. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and tell you guys, we're all going to win. We're not. We're not. The exit door that is Bitcoin is only so big. There's only 21 million. And if you want more Bitcoin, I can't print any more for you. You're going to have to go to the market and get it. And if the market says the supply you're looking for is at $200,000 of Bitcoin, not at $120,000, well, that's tough luck for you. That's just the truth. That's the truth. We're competing over a scarce resource. Now, we're all on the same team philosophically. We all have the same alignment of the future. But the truth of the matter is everyone's going to have to realize that the gig is up. You have to store your wealth in something hard. We're moving back towards where we all belong. Money is our time and energy in an abstracted form. No one person, no one business, no one country, no one bank should be in charge of setting how expensive that is and how much should exist. That's bullshit. Our time and energy in an abstracted form needs to be freely tradable in a market where no one can control it, no one can confiscate it, nobody can set the rules. It's just where we all belong, no matter what. And that's where we're headed. So yes, I think all of these things, like the fact that AI is disrupting a lot of people's jobs, people should take their savings a lot more seriously. People should take future planning a lot more seriously. I think that will lead to more Bitcoin, right? Like any way you slice it, all 8 billion people are in search for a better savings account. And Bitcoin is that savings account.
Jack Mallers explained that if America wants to bring production back home, whether it's iPhones, chips, or basic materials, the dollar has to weaken. For years, US companies built overseas because it was cheaper, and Wall Street rewarded them for higher profits. Now the government is openly saying the old model no longer works. Instead of buying US debt, allies will be told to use their trade earnings to finance American factories. That policy leaves investors asking where to store value, and Mallers points to one answer above all. Bitcoin, the hardest money accessible to anyone, anywhere. Bitcoin stands as the only reliable store of value left. If you want to stay most up to date on the crypto and Bitcoin world, subscribe to my daily 5-minute crypto newsletter. It's a concise resource for the latest expert predictions, breaking news, and top on-chain analysis, trusted by over 90,000 subscribers for insightful crypto investment information. Don't miss out on the opportunity to stay informed in the crypto market. The link is in the description below. I hope you all enjoyed today's video and that it gave you some value. I'll see you all at the next one, and as always, all the best.